She walked onto the screen looking like she didn't quite belong. And that's exactly why nobody could look away. There was something about her that felt different from the rest of the crowd. While everyone else was shouting bids and playing the tough guy, she was thinking 3 moves ahead, calculating quietly, and usually walking away with exactly what she came for. Fans noticed. Ratings reflected it. And then one day she was gone. But here's where things get genuinely interesting. Because what happened after the cameras stopped rolling? That's a story nobody fully told. There were whispers of a health scare that shook people close to her. There was a business move that surprised everyone who thought they had her figured out. There was a personal chapter so unexpected that even longtime fans had to do a double take when they found out. And through all of it, the highs, the hard seasons, the quiet rebuilding, she kept moving forward. So if you've been wondering what really became of some of the most unforgettable women who ever stood at an auction line, buckle up. Because this isn't just a catch-up. It's the full picture, including the parts the show never had time to tell you. Let's start with someone who caught people off guard from the very first episode she appeared in. Most Storage Wars viewers were used to a certain type of buyer, loud, chest-puffed, always trying to intimidate the room. She came in carrying none of that energy and somehow commanded more attention than anyone twice her volume. Edwina Registray wasn't performing for the cameras. She was just genuinely herself. And that authenticity hit differently in a world built on bluster. What made her story so compelling wasn't just what she found inside storage units. It was everything she brought with her before she ever walked onto set. The friendship with her co-buyer Shauna Dehan stretched back to high school hallways and orchestra rehearsals, of all places. 2 girls bonding over viola and vintage finds while their classmates scrolled through mall directories. That shared passion quietly became a brand, Thrifters Anonymous, that outlasted their time on the show by a wide margin. After Storage Wars wrapped up their chapter, Edwina and Shauna didn't slow down for a second. They leaned harder into the creative world they'd been building, pouring their energy into content that felt personal and unpolished in the best possible way. Their YouTube channel became a genuine community hub. Thrift hauls, transformation videos, travel content, honest conversations. Nothing overproduced. Nothing fake. Just 2 best friends who figured out early that the most magnetic thing you can put on screen is real chemistry between real people. And their audience felt that, which is why it stuck. What most viewers never knew was that both women held careers as insurance brokers outside of television. That detail says everything about who they are, grounded, practical, not chasing fame for its own sake. The show was a platform, not a personality transplant. They walked in as themselves and walked out still themselves, just with a few 100,000 more people watching. Now, if Edwina and Shauna represented warmth and creativity, the next woman on this list represented something else entirely. A rare kind of scrappy genius that made Storage Wars feel like it was actually worth paying attention to. Mary Padian showed up with a nickname, the Junkster, and absolutely earned every letter of it. She could look at a pile of discarded furniture that most people would walk past without blinking and see exactly what it could become with a little time and imagination. That ability to spot dormant potential in forgotten things wasn't just a television bit. It was genuinely who she was. And once the show ended, she channeled it into something with real staying power. Her business, Mary's Finds, became the living extension of everything fans loved about watching her on screen. Vintage pieces, second-chance furniture, objects that still had something left to say. She gave them a new audience and a second life. But what set Mary apart from the typical reality TV entrepreneur wasn't just the hustle. It was the heart behind it. She threw herself into philanthropic work with the same conviction she brought to the auction floor. The people who followed her closely, not just casual viewers, but the ones who actually paid attention, picked up on the fact that she wasn't building a brand for attention. She was building a life that matched her values. Hard work, creativity, giving back. And you can't manufacture that combination. It either rings true or it doesn't. With Mary, it always rang true. Here's where the energy shifts, because the next chapter isn't just a feel-good career update. Brandi Passante was, for many people, the heartbeat of Storage Wars. Not because she was the flashiest buyer or the one pulling the biggest scores, but because she was the most undeniably watchable person on the show. She had a sharpness to her that never felt rehearsed. When she rolled her eyes at a bad bid or called out something ridiculous with perfect comic timing, it landed because it was completely real. Her dynamic with Jarrod Schulz gave the show its most consistent dramatic thread. The two of them together were chaotic and funny and genuinely electric in a way that scripted television struggles to replicate. Fans watched them bicker, stumble, succeed, and repeat. They seemed like they'd just always be there, that reliable couple you root for even when they're driving each other crazy. So when the news broke in 2020 that the two had actually separated back in 2018, it hit the fan base harder than most expected. And then it got heavier. A year after that, Jarrod was charged with misdemeanor domestic violence following an altercation with Brandi at a bar in Orange County. It was a difficult public moment that rewrote how a lot of people understood what had been happening behind the scenes. For Brandi, it was just one part of a stretch of life that required real resilience. She also dealt with COVID-19 and spoke honestly about how it lingered, taking a toll that went beyond the initial illness. Then came the Hashimoto's diagnosis, a chronic autoimmune condition that affects the thyroid and doesn't come with a simple fix. Most people would have gone quiet after all of that. Brandi didn't. She came back for season 15 flying solo, and the difference was immediately clear. No tension, no second-guessing, no one to manage but herself. She was sharper, calmer, and completely in control. Fans who'd been worried about her exhaled. The woman who showed up in that season wasn't diminished by everything she'd been through. She was clarified by it. She's since been open about her relationship with Clifford Beaver and stays genuinely active with her audience online. Brandi's story, maybe more than anyone else on this list, is about what happens when someone refuses to let the hard chapters write the ending. But the women of Storage Wars weren't only the ones carrying personal drama and comeback arcs. Some of them were quietly building empires in the background while everyone else was making noise. Laura Dotson is the clearest example of that. On screen, she played a supporting role to her husband Dan's rapid-fire auction calling. But anyone who actually watched carefully knew she was running just as much the show as he was. Her instincts for reading a crowd, managing energy in a room, and keeping the pace locked in were unmistakable. Off camera, she and Dan built American Auctioneers into something that extended far beyond a television credit. Estate sales storage unit auctions, a digital platform called storageauctions.net that brought the whole experience online. They turned a TV appearance into a legitimate industry presence. And when Dan suffered a double brain aneurysm in 2014, Laura held things together in a way that spoke to the kind of partnership they'd actually built. Not a showbiz couple, a real team. They came back for season 15 and slid right back into their rhythm like no time had passed. Laura's signature line, the one about paying the lady, still landed. Their chemistry was still intact. Some things don't fade when they're built on something genuine, and Laura Dotson is proof of that. She didn't need the spotlight to grow. She just needed the work, and she never stopped doing it. Then there's Emily Wares, who deserves way more recognition than the casual viewer probably gave her. She came into Storage Wars in its later seasons, younger than almost everyone else in the room, and immediately had to deal with the skepticism that follows anyone who looks like they might not belong. She dismantled that skepticism in about 30 seconds every time she picked up a mic. Emily didn't come from nowhere. Auctioneering ran in her family, and by the time she joined the show, she already had years of experience and actual titles behind her name. Her bilingual calling, her speed, her ability to command a room full of people who'd been doing this longer than she'd been alive. All of it was earned, not handed to her. Fans who paid attention recognized that she wasn't there to be a personality. She was there to do a job, and she was excellent at it. What made her even more interesting, though, was the layer most people didn't see coming. Alongside her auctioneer career, which continued well past the show with private contracts, estate auctions, and charity events, Emily was quietly building something in music. Country music, specifically. Playing small venues and festivals, building a following with a voice that felt warm and genuine, not polished into something unrecognizable. It fit her perfectly. Two worlds that both require the ability to hold a room and make people feel something. She'd always been doing that. She just found a second stage for it. By now, you might be noticing a pattern. The women who came through Storage Wars and actually built something lasting were the ones who never treated the show as the destination. For every one of them, it was a chapter, sometimes a defining one, sometimes just a memorable detour, but never the whole story. The cameras caught a version of them. The real version kept going after the crew packed up. That's what makes this particular corner of reality television history worth revisiting right now, especially with a new season officially on the horizon. A&E confirmed in early 2025 that Storage Wars is coming back for a 16th season, and the fan response was immediate. Reddit threads lighting up, TikTok throwbacks stacking millions of views. Everyone suddenly remembering exactly why they got hooked in the first place. The question everyone keeps circling back to is who's returning, what they've been through, and whether the show can recapture what made it magnetic. The answer to that last question probably depends less on the format and more on the people. Because Storage Wars was never really about storage units. It was about the personalities standing in front of them. The ones who made you feel like you were watching something unscripted and unfiltered, even when the production was carefully constructed around them. The women on this list understood that instinctively. They showed up as themselves, held nothing back, and left impressions that lasted years after their final episodes aired. So where does that leave us? Somewhere between nostalgia and genuine curiosity, which is honestly the most interesting place to be. Because these aren't just women from a reality show that had a good run. They're people who navigated public scrutiny, personal loss, health battles, relationship fallout, and professional reinvention, sometimes all at once, while a fan base watched and formed opinions, and then moved on to the next thing. And they kept going anyway. Edwina built a brand rooted in friendship and authenticity. Mary turned a love of junk into a business and a philosophy. Brandi came back stronger after a stretch that would have broken a lot of people. Laura built an empire quietly while everyone was watching her husband. Emily mastered two completely different performance arts and made both look effortless. None of them needed Storage Wars to validate what they were capable of. But a lot of people needed Storage Wars to find out about them. And that's worth something. The show gave us a glimpse. Everything that came after it gave us the full story. And honestly, the full story is better. So if you've been sleeping on any of these women since the credits rolled, now you know exactly where they ended up. The question is, are you going to keep watching? If this one hit different for you, drop a comment below. Which of these women surprised you the most? Is there someone you think deserved way more screen time than she got? And with season 16 officially coming, who are you hoping walks back through those auction doors? Hit like if you're excited for what's coming. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and tap whatever's showing up on your screen right now, because the next video is already waiting for you.